Engrossed Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 1, Increasing Access to Career Education and Workforce Training. Third reading of the bill.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The senator from Jefferson County.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill requires the establishment of advanced career education programs and creates the West Virginia Invest Grant Program. ACE programs require community and technical colleges and career education centers, county boards of education, or both, to establish partnerships in order to create programs. These programs would be available to public, non-public, and homeschool students and begin when a student is in high school and end with the student obtaining a credential or an associate degree awarded by a community and technical college. The goal is certification or an associate degree or certification that has been determined to satisfy an area of workforce need as determined by the Department of Commerce. The ACE program is facilitated by the State Superintendent and the Chancellor of the Council for Community and Technical College Education, and they are required to jointly promulgate guidelines for the administration of the ACE programs. This bill provides that beginning with the 2021 fiscal year, any appropriation by the legislature to support and or alleviate the cost to citizens in this state to obtain advanced certifications and associate degrees can only be distributed to those community and technical colleges that form one or more ACE partnerships. The second component of the bill is the West Virginia Invest Grant Program. The Vice Chancellor for Administration is required to administer this program. This program requires the Council to award grants pursuant to certain specified requirements, including the requirement that the maximum amount of the grant is the cost of tuition charged to all students for coursework leading to completion of the chosen associate degree or certificate, less all other state and federal aid for which the student is eligible. The bill establishes eligibility requirements for the grant, renewal qualifications for the grant, and requires each grant recipient to enter into an agreement which requires repayment of any amount of the grant awarded to the recipient in whole or part if a recipient chooses to reside outside the state within 2 years following obtainment of the degree or certificate. The bill also provides exceptions to repayment. Lastly, the bill creates the West Virginia Invest Fund, which is to be expended for the purpose of administering the West Virginia Invest Grant Program. The goal of this bill is to expand opportunities and getting West Virginians into jobs, and not just any jobs, but high-paying jobs, so they can provide for their families and improve their lives. I urge passage of the bill.
Further discussion, the senator from Marion County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I stand in support of Senate Bill 1. I truly, honestly believe that the education system that we have is the foundation of this country. I believe anything we do to strengthen our higher education system, to provide individuals the opportunity to obtain a higher education degree, to obtain a skill or some certification that gives them the opportunity to work in the workforce and be productive citizens in the state of West Virginia, not only helps our state, it helps families, it attracts businesses, and I applaud the efforts of this body by taking the initiative and putting this bill forth, and I urge all to support the bill.
Senior Senator from the 5th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I stand in support of this. Right now, there is a confluence of energy coming together related to the different plans in education. You have the ESSA plan, which is Every Student Succeeds Act. That also was the No Child Left Behind, now the new ESSA plan. And with that, and with the Perkins Act that was passed a couple years ago, and what is called WIOA, W-O-I-A, all three of those acts have said they have to work together. And they have to work together for workforce. They have to have a common point that they all meet. And that common point is exactly what's in this bill. That's why it's important to be talking about the next steps as we did yesterday. Everybody says, okay, those are good amendments, but those are the next steps. Well, the next steps are going to be the important next steps, because you're going to have community and technical colleges, you'll have the CTE, public education, and you'll have Workforce Investment Act, the workforce group working together. We have to have all these things working together to get where we need to on workforce participation. So all of these elements coming together is the time now for this state to move forward. This is a good first step, and I look forward to working with you on the next ones.
Further discussion? Senior Senator from the 15th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Last year, I got up on this floor and gave a big, passionate speech to this, and I thought that this bill would have been completed by now. But here we are today, and I call this bill now, I got a nickname for it, and have used it for a good while, last dollar in. When I talk about this, that's how I refer to it. I just call it last dollar in. Look, how do I want to explain this without going, I don't want to go down the path of last year is what I'm trying to get at here. We know what this bill is going to do. It is not an entitlement in any way. In fact, it's an investment. It's an investment in the people of West Virginia and people in West Virginia like me. It's a big deal. Look, businesses are looking, they got a checklist of different things that they're looking for, and we're trying to knock down each and every one of those barriers. But one of the ones that we're trying to knock down is demonstrating to business that would potentially locate here or expand, is that we've got an educated, drug-free workforce. This bill, very much so, last dollar in, very much so, helps with that in a big way. And the money that we're spending out on the front side to be able to implement this will be saved on the back side by increased income tax collections, because instead of them being on one entitlement or another, whether it's welfare, food stamps, unemployment, the list goes on that. No, they turn into taxpayers. Instead of being tax takers, they turn into taxpayers. That's a win for the state of West Virginia. That's a win for the ability for those that are in less situations or poorer situations to be able to utilize this as well into the future. You don't have to have a certain grade point average, or I would have never been able to apply for that. This gets me there. It allows people like myself to be able to succeed in this state, and businesses to succeed in this state, which helps us over the overall message that we're trying to do. And that is grow the fiscal pie in the state of West Virginia. Instead of fighting over a shrinking pie, we're going to grow the pie, and this is a key component to doing that, Mr. President, a key component to doing it. More than anything, though, it helps the students in secondary education as well as those that are past that on post-secondary. In such a way that when we have the opioid crisis and everything, and I've got to say this, and I didn't want to, but I'm going to. There's a direct correlation with boredom in the classroom, in the drug usage, tobacco, alcohol, and all the other ills that we have when you get into the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade levels. And if you take people like myself, and I use this over and over, like Moby Dick and Old Man in the Sea, I hated it. I didn't want to read that. But if you'd have given me a tech manual on how to learn how to do refrigeration or electrical or whatever else it may be, I would have read it from cover to cover probably twice. There are multiple paths of education in this state because we have multiple types of people, personalities from a very young age moving through. This bill, Mr. President, addresses all those. And I'll close with this. This bill helps West Virginians help themselves by the last dollar in, and I can't wait to press the button on this. Thank you, Mr. President.
Is there further discussion? Further discussion. The senator from Logan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I applaud your efforts on this bill. I've heard others say that it's an entitlement program. I cannot fathom how there's a correlation between this bill and entitlement. This is an investment in the youth of this state. This is an opportunity to change the status quo, to put more people on a path of prosperity. And I wholeheartedly support this bill and your efforts in it. Thank you very much.
Further discussion. The senator from Nicholas County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be brief. I've been on a number of mission trips where we've gone into third world countries, and they were looking for us to come and work to be able to provide for them. One of the things that I learned, though, is a philosophy that is built within this particular piece of legislation. And that analogy was this. You can go and you can feed people fish, and you have to do it every day. But you can train them to fish for themselves, and they'll feed themselves for a lifetime. This particular piece of legislation does just exactly that. This is an investment for West Virginia for perpetuity. Thank you.
Further discussion. Not question before the Senate is shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question there being 34 yea, 0 nay, 0 absent and not voting, more than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will please communicate the action of the Senate to the House.